YNW Melly was on the cusp of making it big as a rapper, and he was just getting started. But he was accused and arrested of the murder of two of his friends, which derailed the promising career he had been working toward up until that point. Many people were left wondering how the defendant would respond upon witnessing everything play out in front of him, since the evidence that was given in his trial was stunning and distressing. This video will investigate YNW Melly's responses to the evidence that was presented in court, as well as the prosecution's and defense's respective claims against him. We will also go into the judgment handed down by the jury and discuss what its implications are for the young artist's career moving forward. Without further ado, let's reveal all the latest details on this topic. Rapper YNW Melly was taken into custody and accused of the slayings of his two close friends, YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser, in February 2019. Many of his followers, who had been following his meteoric climb to stardom in the music business, were taken aback when they heard the news. The indictment said that Melly had planned with another acquaintance, named Colton Henry, to create the murder scene and make it appear like it had been the result of a drive-by shooting. The public's responses to Melly's arrest were neither uniformly positive nor negative. Others supported him and maintained their belief that he should be presumed innocent until it could be shown beyond a reasonable doubt that he had committed the horrible act for which he was being accused. As the proceedings of the case went on, more specifics about the evidence against Melly started to surface. This caused many people to speculate what response he might give when confronted with charges as devastating as these. After seeing the evidence that was brought out against him in court, YNW Melly's demeanor became noticeably upset. The true name of the rapper is Jamel Maurice Timmons, and in 2018, he was accused of killing two of his pals who were also rappers, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr. The prosecution made a compelling case against him, including DNA evidence and the testimony of witnesses. Disbelief and astonishment characterized Melly's response when he saw the proof. Even though he maintained his innocence throughout the whole of the trial, it was a sobering experience for him to witness the facts set out in front of him. Despite this, Melly kept his composure and maintained his concentration throughout the trial. He often took notes and spoke with his legal team. It was very evident that he intended to do whatever it took to win his release and vindicate his innocence. It was remarkable to witness how unruffled YNW Melly remained when the evidence against him was presented in this trial. He never lost his cool despite the gravity of the allegations against him and the abundance of evidence against him. He seemed to have made peace with whatever consequence was ahead of him, as if he had already accepted it. What really stood out to me about YNW Melly was that he didn't seem to be pleading for his life or making explanations for his behavior. Instead, it seemed like he was owning up to what had occurred and making peace with the fallout. Being so accepting and mature in the face of such grave accusations is unusual for anybody. Whatever the outcome of YNW Melly's case may be, one thing is certain: he has handled it with incredible poise and acceptance. It remains to be seen whether this will have any bearing on his final sentencing, but YNW Melly has handled this whole thing with an extraordinary amount of grace. The case brought by the prosecution against YNW Melly was supported by a mountain of evidence, which included forensic evidence, witness testimony, and social media postings, among other types of evidence. The prosecution said that Melly had conceived of and carried out a cold-blooded plot to kill his two close pals, YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser. A video confession that Melly's co-defendant made, Colton Henry, was one of the most essential pieces of evidence that the prosecution was able to offer. Henry makes an admission on the video that he was there at the time of the murders, and he suggests that Melly was the one who planned the murders and carried them out. In addition, the findings of the forensic investigation showed that the same firearm was used to shoot both the victims at close range. The activities that Melly engaged in on his various social media platforms were also cited by the prosecution as proof of his guilt. Melly said in one of his posts that he had created after the deaths, "They took my brothers away from me because of jealousy." The state made the argument that this post demonstrated why Melly committed the crime he was accused of. The prosecution made a convincing case against YNW Melly as a whole, but it was ultimately up to the jury to decide whether or not he was guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. During the trial, YNW Melly's legal representation made their case to demonstrate their client's innocence. They maintained that the evidence that was given by the prosecution was circumstantial and that it did not show beyond a reasonable doubt that YNW Melly was responsible for the crime. The defense also pointed out contradictions in the statements of witnesses and emphasized the fact that there was no tangible proof tying YNW Melly to the killings. Both of these points were brought up by the defense. In addition, they said that YNW Melly had no reason to conduct such a horrific act, since he was a popular rapper who still had a bright future in front of him professionally. In addition, YNW Melly's legal team contended that the defendant suffered from mental health disorders, such as schizophrenia and bipolar illness, which may have influenced his conduct at the time of the killings. These conditions were included in their argument. They supported their allegation with evidence such as medical records and testimony from an expert. YNW Melly was convicted guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder in the end, despite the efforts of the jury, who found him guilty of both charges. Although the evidence presented by the defense may not have been sufficient to alter the verdict made by the jury, it does throw light on some of the difficulties that defendants confront in criminal cases. The case brought against YNW Melly was tried for a significant amount of time and received a great deal of media attention before the jury reached a decision. In October 2018, the rapper was accused of murdering 2 of his friends and fellow rappers, namely Anthony Williams, YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., YNW Juvie. The rapper was also facing 2 charges of first-degree murder for the alleged killings. Following many days of deliberation, the jury concluded that YNW Melly was responsible for both charges of first-degree murder. The judgment came as a surprise to many of his admirers and supporters, especially those who had been paying close attention to the case. Despite the attempts made by the defense to claim that there was not enough evidence to show YNW Melly's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, the prosecution presented a convincing case that persuaded the jury that YNW Melly was guilty of the crime. As a direct consequence of this, YNW Melly now has no chance of being released from jail within his lifetime. People all across social media have responded to the conviction in a variety of ways, with some expressing compassion for YNW Melly and others praising the judicial system for holding him responsible for his alleged crimes. The judgment has been met with a variety of opinions. This judgment will have huge repercussions not just for YNW Melly's future, but also for the music business as a whole, regardless of the professional beliefs that one may have about the subject matter. The trial of YNW Melly has been the subject of extensive media coverage and has captured the interest of both supporters and detractors alike. In light of the incriminating evidence that was given in court, it is abundantly evident that the prosecution had a solid case against him. Nevertheless, the defense team also offered persuasive reasons that caused reasonable people to question whether or not YNW Melly committed the crime. In the end, the verdict on his destiny was decided by the jury, and they decided that he was guilty of the allegations that were brought against him. The fact that this conclusion occurred serves as a reminder of the necessity of responsibility in our legal system, even though it may be disheartening for some people. That's all for today's video, guys. If you like our content, feel free to subscribe to the channel, share, and hit the notification bell to get the latest news from us. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.